What if you grew up with a lie? What if the man you think you've always known never existed as he was presented to you? His name is Jesus, but his story has been rewritten, reshaped, cleaned up, erased by those who had the power to write history. In this video, we will reveal what the church has always kept silent. Frightening truths, forgotten writings, revelations that few still dare to address. So before going any further, subscribe. Because here, you won't find stories told to lull you to sleep. You will find the truth, or at least what remains of it. We will delve into the depths of time, into the heart of contradictions beyond dogmas, to try to find the man behind the myth, the real life of Jesus, the one that was hidden, the one that was rewritten, the one you've never heard before. The story of Jesus does not begin in a stable decorated with light and angels, but in a shattered land ravaged by occupation, poverty, and fear. First-century Judea was a rebellious Roman province, constantly under surveillance, often repressed. The Jewish people, crushed by taxes and humiliations, desperately awaited a liberator of disorder. It was into this tense climate that a child was born, not in miraculous calm, but in the tumult of a world on the verge of explosion. His name was Yeshua, an Aramaic variant of Joshua, a name laden with symbolism: God saves. Contrary to what the later Gospels recount, this birth held nothing supernatural about it for the witnesses of the time. The Gospels of Mark and John, like the earliest, do not even mention the virgin birth. They begin the story directly in adulthood with John the Baptist. This detail is crucial. It means that the miraculous aspect of Jesus' birth may not have been a fact, but a late addition intended to convince a Roman or pagan audience accustomed to mythological stories. The Son of God must have had an extraordinary birth, so it was created. But who was this man before the myth engulfed him? Very little has come down to us about his childhood, a heavy silence, nothing about his first 10 years, nothing about his adolescence. Yet the Jews held rich, precise, and detailed oral traditions. Why this gap? Was it because there was nothing exceptional to recount, or because people preferred to erase what did not correspond to the future image of Christ? What we do know is that Jesus grew up in a modest Jewish family. He spoke Aramaic, and perhaps also some Hebrew and Greek. He was a carpenter, a craftsman's trade that required strength, precision, and endurance. He didn't come from the priestly class, nor from the religious aristocracy. He came from the common people, and it was there, precisely there, that his message found its power. Jesus was not a man of the temples. He didn't teach in gilded synagogues. He walked barefoot on the dusty roads of Galilee. He spoke to prostitutes, lepers, and despised tax collectors. He healed the sick. He forgave where the law condemned. He transgressed religious rules in the name of love. And this, the Jerusalem elite could not tolerate. To better understand why this man caused trouble, we must understand the religious context of his time. Judaism was not a uniform bloc. It was crossed by several currents, sometimes violently opposed. The Pharisees, meticulous guardians of the law. The Sadducees, wealthy priests allied with the Romans. The Essenes, mystics secluded in the desert, awaiting the end of the world. And finally, the Zealots, the most radical, ready to take up arms to drive out the Roman occupier. To which sect did Jesus belong? The texts don't make it clear, but his words and actions suggest that he was much more than a simple pacifist. He speaks of a coming kingdom. He overturns the tables of the merchants in the temple. He calls for total fidelity to God, even at the cost of one's life. He denounces the hypocrisy of religious leaders. He surrounds himself with simple, uneducated disciples. He promises the poor what the world has always denied them: dignity. In the eyes of the authorities, he becomes a danger, not just religious, but political. We often forget that Jesus lived under a brutal military regime, that a popular preacher who attracted misconduct was immediately suspect. The Romans didn't fear foreign gods, they feared revolts, and Jesus brought people together. He spoke like a king. He was acclaimed in the streets. Even his entry into Jerusalem, mounted on a donkey, is a highly symbolic gesture. It is the image of the Messiah King, according to the prophecies. It is not a simple stroll, it is a challenge. But to understand how disturbing his message was, we must go further. We must look at what the churches failed to retain, what they discarded, what they erased from libraries and memories. There are texts, entire gospels, stories attributed to Thomas, Mary Magdalene, Judas, visions, dialogues, fragments long considered heretical. These writings, called Apocrypha or Gnostic, show a very different Jesus, a master of wisdom, almost a philosopher, a man who invites everyone to seek the truth within themselves. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus does not speak of sin, hell, or heaven. He speaks of inner light, of knowledge. He who knows himself knows everything. This saying does not resemble traditional theology. It is problematic, it disturbs, it liberates. This is probably why it was suppressed. But there's more to this story that's troubling. In these forgotten texts, one character keeps recurring, Mary Magdalene. She's no longer just a repentant sinner. She's the one close to him, the one closest to him. In some stories, she understands Jesus better than all the other disciples. In the Gospel according to Mary, it's she who consoles the apostles after the crucifixion. It's she whom Jesus supposedly chose to transmit his most profound teachings. Why were these texts excluded? Why was this woman, so central to these Gospels, silenced for centuries? One possible answer, because her place disrupted the patriarchal order the church wanted to impose. A woman as a witness to the resurrection, as the custodian of the spiritual message, as the equal of the apostles, unacceptable. She had to be transformed into a prostitute, on the sidelines, as a supporting character, and this transformation of the story is only the beginning. The Jesus of the canonical Gospels is himself the result of selections, of political choices. In 325, during the Council of Nicaea, Emperor Constantine gathered the bishops to establish an official doctrine. This was not a spiritual gathering, it was an imperial strategy. The empire needed to unify its beliefs. It had to choose one narrative and eliminate the others. Jesus potentially became Son of God, born of a virgin, died and rose again for the sins of men. History is frozen. But at what cost? How many voices were stifled? How many testimonies forgotten? How many truths drowned under dogma? Did Jesus know he was going to die? The question seems simple, but it opens an abyss. The Gospels affirm that he had predicted it, that he accepted it as a divine mission. But these texts were written after the fact, by convinced believers. Or, reading between the lines, other elements emerge. Jesus prays anguished in Gethsemane, asking God to remove the cup from him. He provides. He sweats blood. This doesn't sound like the calm of a resigned man. It sounds like fear, like humanity. Crucifixion in the Roman tradition wasn't just a death sentence, it was a humiliation, a way to kill publicly, slowly and painfully, reserved for slaves, criminals and insurgents. The fact that Jesus was crucified proves that the Romans considered him a political danger, not just a preacher. The inscription, King of the Jews, on the cross wasn't an innocent mockery. It was the exact accusation, a man making himself king in an empire where there is no king but Caesar. But even here, the story becomes unclear. The Gospels contradict each other. In Matthew, he lets out a loud cry and dies. In Luke, he forgives his executioners. In John, he speaks calmly and dies majestically. The details don't add up. The time of death, the last words, even Pilate's exact role vary. Was Pilate the cruel and merciless governor described by Roman historians? Or the hesitant and almost compassionate man described in the Gospels? It seems his image was softened so as not to offend the Roman authorities at the time of the spread of Christianity throughout the empire. And then there is the question that few dare to ask. Did Jesus really die on the cross? It's a taboo theory, and yet voices have defended it for centuries. Some claim he wasn't yet dead when he was removed from the cross, that he was cared for in secret, that he fled. Where? To Egypt, to India. In the mountains of Kashmir, where some local traditions evoke the visit of a foreign saint from the West. Fable, manipulation, or a distant memory of a forgotten exile. In the Quran, another narrative takes shape. For Islam, Jesus Isa was not crucified. He was supposedly given his appearance to another, and God raised him alive to himself. This view, shared by more than 1 billion people, is rarely discussed in Western debates, and yet it raises a fundamental question. Why did these ancient traditions perceive the story of the crucifixion so differently? But let's go even further. The resurrection, the very heart of Christianity, the decisive moment, the proof for believers that Jesus was indeed the Son of God. But here again, the texts do not agree. Who discovered the empty tomb? At what time? Was it dawn, night, or morning? Was there one angel, two angels, a man in white? Did Jesus appear first to Mary Magdalene or to the disciples? Is he physical? Does he eat fish? Or is he a spirit we don't immediately recognize? These contradictions are not intended to deny the event, but to recall a crucial truth. The history we know is the fruit of accounts compiled, adjusted, selected, translated, and interpreted. It is not a single testimony. It is a kaleidoscope. During the first centuries, dozens of versions of Jesus' message circulated throughout the Mediterranean world. Christian communities did not all believe the same thing. Some saw him as a human prophet enlightened by God, others a pure spirit come to deliver a message. Still others believed he embodied eternal wisdom, with no real connection to any historical event. And then, little by little, one version prevailed. Not through its spiritual superiority, but through political force. The nascent church, supported by the emperors, established a canon, rejected heresies, burned manuscripts, and persecuted those who dissented. It transformed a spiritual movement into an institution with dogmas, laws, and hierarchies. It set the truth in stone. But is this truth the only possible one? If we listen to the buried voices, if we revive the manuscripts found at Nag Hammadi or Qumran, another Jesus appears, a man of light, a rebellious mystic, an initiatory master, perhaps even a sage in search of universal unity, whose message was betrayed by those who claimed to defend it. And therein lies the complexity, the power, and the painful beauty of his story. For whether or not we believe in his divinity, Jesus revolutionized human history. He posed questions that we still ask. What is truth? Is forgiveness stronger than the law? Does power come from love or force? And above all, what are we willing to sacrifice for what we believe is right? The man behind the myth is perhaps no less fascinating than the Christ of dogma. He is more human, closer, and fragile, and perhaps for that very reason more inspiring. So who was Jesus really? A rebel prophet? A forgotten spiritual master? A simple man who became a legend? Or all of the above? What we do know is that his story is not static. It lives, it breathes, it transforms, and above all, it disturbs. For the truth is not always what we are taught. It is complex. It disrupts established comforts. It forces us to think for ourselves, to question what we took for granted. And Jesus, more than anyone else, embodies this sacred danger, that of awakening. Perhaps this is what the Church throughout the centuries has wanted to contain. Not just a man, but an idea, a radical idea, that everyone can find God within themselves, without intermediaries, without dogmas, without institutions. A revolutionary idea, uncontrollable, unforgettable. They wanted to make Jesus a heavenly king while he lived like a vagabond. They wanted to paint him in gold and marble while he preached under the burning sun of forgotten villages. They wanted to crown him while he fell to his knees. They wanted to make him unattainable while he walked among men with dust on his feet and fire in his eyes. But his message is still there, hidden beneath centuries of silence. It doesn't ask to be worshipped. It asks to be understood. And perhaps this is the greatest secret the Church has never told you. If this story touched you, if it awakened a question, an emotion, a doubt in you, then subscribe. Because what we do here is not tell stories, it's seek what lies beneath, beyond the visible, beyond certainties. The true face of Jesus is not in the paintings. It is in the fragments, in the silences, in the forgotten words. He is in every human being who dares to seek the truth, even when it is frightening, especially when it is frightening. Thank you for watching to the end, and above all, never stop asking questions.